Welcome aboard, shipmates. This is Warrant Officer David Sheets, Commanding Officer of the John T. Dempster Jr. Division of the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our program, Real Sailors, Real Sea Stories. These are first-person narratives of our service members in the United States Navy, created exclusively for the Naval Sea Cadet Corps by the Talent Acquisition Group of Philadelphia. With me, behind the scenes, is NC1 Quinlan, our PAO, and STG1 Lewison, our IT support. Everyone, this is a live broadcast, which will be recorded so you can see it later. Things could happen. We've been told it's raining in the area. We may drop out. There's a certain element of danger and suspense. Not sure what's going to happen, but we're going to do our best to continue this and press on no matter what. So as I said a few moments ago, this presentation is for the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps. But we have many people joining from across the country who have been invited, who are part of this presentation, and we really enjoy the fact that you're here. Learn more about our sailors, the great stuff that they do out in the fleet all the time, and continue to appreciate what they do for us in the service to our country. Back to you, Sea Cadets. This is not a passive learning exercise for you, but this is active learning. And how we're going to reinforce that is after this presentation, we'll make available to you an online quiz. That quiz will only be available for 2 days, so get in there and answer those questions. There's only 10 of them. They're covered within the topics of this presentation or within easily accessible sites like Wikipedia. I know, I wrote the test. So please accomplish that, and you'll send that information off to your commanding officer and get some virtual drill credit for this session. When you have questions during this presentation, put them in the comments section. We'll look at them and we'll do our very best to bring it to our speaker's attention during this broadcast. Who's our speaker? Our speaker today is NC1 Michael Carlin. He is an interior ship communications specialist, but also is cross-rated over to the Navy Career Counselor field. He has a fantastic story. I've seen a preview. I know you're going to like it. So Petty Officer Carlin, the ship is all yours.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, it is a pleasure to be here, and I thank you for taking your time every day to come and listen to my story. And I hope that out of this presentation that I am about to go into, that the main focus is for you guys to understand some of my experiences, but I want you guys to take it with a grain of salt, because everyone's experience is their own, and it is what you make of it out of no matter what career field that you go into. And mine is unique because I was able to explore, as sir mentioned before, interior communications electrician, as well as I was able to lateral convert to Navy counselor. So two completely different things, but both very I enjoy them very much, and they both make a good impact to the Navy. So to start, I am Michael Carlin, Navy Counselor First Class, SWAW, so Surface Warfare, Aviation Warfare, qualified, and let's begin. So I'm originally from San Diego, California. Born there, but growing up, I am a military family. So my father has served. He's done 24 years, so I was able to move around a lot. So I'm used to moving around, and that's kind of what I enjoy. I've been in the Navy for 7 years, 10 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. So I'm not counting too much, but I do look forward to the day I retired, mainly because I've seen the things that this has done, and who knows, I may go further than that. But the reason why I joined is to give my future family the same opportunities my father gave to me growing up. And I say that because I feel like, as I said, growing up, I've had a unique living. I've been to, just in my high school career, I went to 4 different high schools because of job changes that he's had in his Navy career. So I was able to go to that. So it's helped me grow as a person and be able to branch out and meet other people, and makes me talk to people easier. I also wanted to pave my own way in life, because he had the GI Bill, but I knew that I could get it for myself, so I told my dad, I know that I can do this, and I want you to get the GI Bill to my sister. So that's what he ended up doing. He gave the GI Bill to my sister, and she graduated from University of Central Florida debt-free from that. And yeah, so it makes me happy that she was able to accomplish that with the GI Bill. Yeah, so the best things about my job is I get to troubleshoot critical equipment to help maintain ships' capabilities on deployment. I thoroughly enjoy that because in my life I played a lot of sports competitively, mainly hockey. So I like doing things under pressure. So whenever a ship system goes down, I like being the person that they have to call, or just being around trying to help out the best that I can to help keep the ship's capabilities up. Some of my top Navy memories, I keep this kind of broad with the working in combat electronics division, mainly because as a division, like, there's so many people on a ship. On a destroyer, you probably have roughly around 350 to 400 sailors, depending on where you're at. So if you're on deployment, you probably have closer to 400 personnel. But on my division, we had roughly 18 persons, and we've all worked really closely. So not only did I do my interior communications job, I was able to work on electronics technician stuff, fire controlman stuff, gunner's mate equipment, and get really hands-on with that. But the people that I work with, I can thoroughly say that I enjoyed working with them because I've never developed a closer relationship, and that's what made the deployments even easier and better. So, and with that, I also enjoyed the security reaction force training, as in I have a video later on in the slides that you guys will observe, and I'll dive in a little further then. But another thing I enjoyed is being in retirement ceremonies. I feel like it's a tremendous honor to be a part of those. I've been in 3 of the retirement ceremonies. Two of them were I took more personally, just because I was able to do the flags for my father and my uncle. My father, I did the watch. So at the end, whenever they ask, who has this watch now, who will take this man's watch, I was able to raise my hand and march up ceremoniously and take the watch from my father, who served 24 years in the Navy. He was retired as a senior chief Navy counselor. And another one, my uncle, he was on board the Anchorage at the time, and he was Chang. And then he retired after 30 years as a commander. And so I was able to take the watch from him as well. So I took those very personally because they've impacted my career so much. And I honestly don't think I would have been in my current situation if it wasn't for them and learning from their experiences, because I firmly believe that you should listen to the people that are above you or who have been in longer or more seasoned, because they've been there, they've done that, they know the things that you should and should not do, but yes, you want to tailor it to your own life, you want to do it for yourself, but ultimately you want to listen to what they have to say, because it's very knowledgeable and yeah, it can help you out a lot. Some of my previous assignments, I have one, it was on board the USS Kidd, Aegis Missile Guided Destroyer, DDG-100. I enjoyed this ship a lot. A lot of it was because the namesake as well, was because from Rear Admiral Kidd, who was actually the first flag officer to die in World War II in Pearl Harbor. He was on board the USS Arizona. So I was able to learn a lot of history about that, about what he did. So whenever I got to Hawaii and was able to visit where the Arizona was sunk, I was able to see his name and fully understand. Like I didn't understand until I got to there, like how everyone felt seeing World War II veterans there still showing their respects to that day. It was very impactful. So, but yes, the USS Kidd was the third of its kind, third Kidd name. So yeah, and as you can see off to the left, that was whenever I did some volunteering with the South Koreans. So what we did was we worked at a hospital for the elderly, and we cleaned out their beds, helped serve food, and cleaned up around the area, rake, clean up all around it. But I enjoy those kind of times because you're able to learn from their cultures, and make some new friends. I've added them on Instagram. I'm actually in touch with one of them, not with these ones in particular, but one of them I'm in touch with just because he was really nice. So we just became friends after time. So as you see here on the left, that was whenever I was in the flag ceremony with my father. I was raising my hand ceremoniously, and I was passing it to him. That it was, in the military, in general, they teach you to keep your military bearing, and in that instance, and in my uncle's too, as you'll see later inside with another picture. But it's hard. It was hard for me to not try to lose a tear or two. Try to maintain the military bearing, just because I knew what he did for me. Because he would always tell me not what I wanted to hear, but what I needed to hear. So that's why, ultimately, growing up, I was always afraid to go to him. Because he would always be stern with me, but I knew at the end of the day he was doing it for a reason. So it meant a lot to be able to do that for him and give back a little bit of what he gave to me. Off to the right, I have the the food services assistant. Basically, what that is I'm helping out in the wardroom. So it's standard for military personnel when they check on board to the ship that they go and do the FSA stuff for 2 months. So basically what you do is clean dishes, help serve food, clean the mess decks, which is basically the lunchroom. So keeping it clean. I mean, I enjoyed it. I was in the officers' wardroom, so I was able to serve all the officers on board our ship, the captain, the XO, and as well as some of the ops, the people that I work for, the combat systems officer. So I was able to get a little closer with them, understand their stories a little bit, And I also was able to get close with the culinary specialist, a second class at the time, Pasco. He was a really nice fella. So he actually made me banana muffins, which were kind of my favorite things on deployments. I was able to get the hookup per se because no one else on the ship got those except for me. But ultimately I took down the rest of the banana muffins down to my guys in Aft IC. So a little more about my rate. Well, prior rate was the Navy's established the IC rate in 1948. A derivative of the electrician's mate rating, and charges its interior communications electrician with the responsibility of the installation, maintenance, and repair of all equipment required for interior communications on board ships and at shore facilities. ICs work everywhere on board a ship, from the bottom of the ship all the way up to the mast, all the way forward and all the way aft. So deep in the engineering spaces, working on that, all the way up to the mast, working on our wind sensors, and even helping out the electronics technicians with some of their equipment as well. So here is a brief video about my rate.
I own a piece of equipment in every single space on board. The most important thing is the diversity of the IC ring. I have something on top of the ship, and I have something on the very bottom of the ship. I ensure that I have navigation signals. I ensure that we know where a fire's at if something does happen. We have our basic telephone system. It's how we communicate between vital watch controlling stations. We also deal with sound power telephone systems. When you were a kid and you hook up a piece of string to a paper cup, that's all it is. Also, indicating and warning systems. Any sort of issue that can pop up on the ship, those alarms go through, and that is what I maintain on a day-to-day basis. We also have audio-visual distribution equipment on board. Cameras, TV broadcasts, the IC men handle that as well. You're going to catch a lot of problems that are not going to be on paper how to fix. So those critical thinking skills, which is the part I love about my job, it's like a big puzzle. The IC job puts a lot of different skill sets together. You're going to be turning a wrench on a piece of mechanical equipment, and then the next minute you're going to be using a multimeter to take a reading on the circuit. The workload can be overtasking sometimes, but it's some of the most rewarding work I ever do. You're going to be maintaining equipment on a multi-billion-dollar naval vessel, ensuring that we can defend freedom and democracy, and you get to go do a lot of cool stuff along the way.
Wonderful. All right, so what do I do as an IC? So that gives you the video just gives you a brief description of what we do. But we as I said, is maintain and repair shipboard navigation equipment, install telephones and other communication circuits, boxes, switchboards, bell buzzers, and systems. As you can see, it's a wide variety of systems that we deal with, and we do have systems all over the ship that we have to go into. So every rate that is in the Navy, we're able to see what they do and potentially help them out in whatever they need, because we are the subject matter experts when it comes to electricity and electronics. So they come to us if they have any needs for that, like gunnery systems. If something electronic goes down, they don't know how to do it, they're going to come to us, or they're going to go to some electricians. More specifically, I want to get into the sound-powered telephone stuff. It may or may not be a question. Wink. All right, but what the sound-powered telephone is basically it is a telephone that communicates technology that uses mechanical transducers to provide an audio communications over a single wire pair and without the use of external power or batteries. So basically, your voice amplifications go into it, and there's like these two magnets, right? And whenever you talk into it, it creates vibrations, which produces electricity, which pushes out your whatever message that you're trying to relay. And we use these sound-powered telephones everywhere. So like whenever we're on a watch and Combat Information Center, Combat Systems Maintenance Center as well, or even engineering and damage control repair lockers, like for firefighting, it's all over the ship. They use it for communication. Like if the ship were to lose power or something like that, we always can fall back on these sound-powered telephones to be able to help us communicate, navigate, and then execute the mission, which is ultimately the goal in being in the Navy. You want to be able to execute the mission in whatever mission area that you're in, because there are multiple mission areas that are on a naval warship that you need to know what to get into. So like in combat systems, if we're like in an aviation mission area, we have to make sure that our aviation like combat stuff is up and ready to go. If we're in the surface one, make sure our surface capabilities are up. Subsurface, same thing. So as an interior communications specialist, electrician, I went to apprenticeship training, technical training school. So for that, I was in school for 9 weeks, and to be exact. So that's basic technical documentation, knowledge and skills of electricity and electronics, and basic mechanical theory. So it's just getting you familiar with it. And yeah, that way, and if you don't make it, then you'll transition another rate. But if you make it through that, they're going to push you on to the next route, which is the Class A school, technical school. So now this is more about my rate. So the first schooling is just to make sure that you can comprehend and make it through the next schooling. So Class A school, we learn more about CPR, electrical math, basic schematics, ACs and DC circuits, solid state characteristics, logic systems required for rating. So logic meaning like doing like with underwater like navigation type systems. So that was for 12 weeks. And then I went to my C school, which is C schools are more specified schooling, having specific skills. I went to the FODMS school, which is fiber optic data multiplexing system, which that school was for 5 weeks. And so the way I like to describe FODMS, as we call it, is that it's the nervous system of the ship. So like I have the brain down in aft IC, which is one of my spaces that I worked out of. And what I can do there is I can monitor all navigation type inputs across the ship. No matter what kind of communication, from a fire alarm to water pressure, to people communicating, that system monitors it and makes sure it pushes out to the rest of the ship. So if something were to happen to that, I need to go in and fix it. So that brings up to like the technical difficulties, So I'll give you one example of one moment that I enjoyed was whenever on my first deployment, it was 2 days before we were supposed to get out. And then one of our systems went down on FODMS, and we needed that input in order to safely navigate. So I got called. I went in at like 11 o'clock at night, and I didn't leave until like 3 o'clock in the morning. But I was able to troubleshoot and fix that missing signal. And because doing that, the section leader at the time, it was a fire controlman chief. He came down there with me. He didn't have to, but he did. And honestly, that showed a lot to me, because me being new into the Navy, seeing someone like that coming and hanging out with me, like he was helping me out as much as he could, but he was there for like motivational support, talking to me, and and it showed that he cared. And that's kind of the thing that what the Navy is. No matter what job you are, people care, and they're going to come and help you. And that's what he did. And it showed me what kind of leader I want to be. I want to be that person that is going to be there for the person when they least expect it. And what all leaders should, like what anyone that wants to be a good leader should strive for. Be there when someone least expects it. But on to the next slide. I get a little more in depth on the security force reaction schooling, which I enjoyed thoroughly, and I'll get a little more detail after the video.
So our mission here is to train the sailors. Our mission is to make sure that the fleet is ready to respond to any threat, whether it be a terrorist attack, whether it be an active shooter, whether it be a threat within the ship. We train our sailors here to go back to the fleet and be able to protect the fleet.
You serve with these people every day, and you would never want to see someone that you work with get hurt or, even worse, lose their life. So it's just very important to me to actually be able to protect them. I feel like if I went to the ship now and something were to happen, I wouldn't even hesitate to respond. Just with the knowledge that I have now after doing this course, definitely a lot more confident in my tactical skills and just being able to assess problems.
I just came from a ship. I was there for 4 years. The most rewarding part for me was seeing sailors that came through this training, whether it be here in Pearl Harbor or any of our other learning sites, coming back to the ship with the wealth of knowledge that we can provide them, and being able to help out the ship and help out the training teams and make us all better.
Okay. So for the security force reaction schooling, there's actually two types of security force reactions. There's a Bravo and an Alpha. So Bravo is your basics security force reaction. So that's that is mandated. Pretty much for the most part, most rates need to go into, unless you have a specific engineering watch, that you don't need that. But it's mainly for, as we call, topsider type jobs, like combat systems, such as myself. So, but SRF Bravo, right, is just standard stuff where you get to practice takedowns, handle guns, and then deal with OC spray. So basically, and be able to show that if something were to happen, you were to get affected by OC spray, you can effectively take someone down, or they have you go through this whole obstacle course. For me, I remember that particularly because my allergies were acting up, so it wasn't a pretty picture whenever the snot started coming out. But it was a fun experience after thinking about it. Like during the time when it was happening, it did not seem fun. But looking back on it, no one can ever take that away from me. It's just those experiences that I gained from the Navy that no one could ever take from me, such as this. Yes, it was painful and it didn't look fun, but it was still fun during the time. And everyone there is completely motivated. They're yelling at you, "Come on, man, keep pushing through. Come on, Carlin, you can do it." And then for this SRF Alpha, which is the video you just watched, so it's a voluntary thing that you have to show that you have to be qualified and through your watch stations, and then you can get sent to the school if you want to. So what that is basically breaching rooms, learning how to tactically go into a room, how to take someone down more effectively, how to walk down a pier, how to work with a team of 4, how to tell them, hey, someone's over there, or hey, move this way, without even talking, just by hand gestures. So that was a lot of fun, because in the SRF Alpha, we also deal with the M4s, but we deal with paintballish type rounds. They're called Simex rounds. And what those are, it's basically like the real bullets, but the tips are paint. So whenever you get hit by them, it's just like a big orange blob on you. So whenever we went through our scenarios and stuff like that, we would actually go against another group of guys that are going through the same school, guys or girls, going through the same school, and they would try to shoot at us, and they would act as the person trying to penetrate the ship. So if we got hit, obviously we had to lay down because we're out. But that was a lot of fun because it's a unique experience that not everyone can do. But I would highly recommend, if you want to have some fun like that, definitely go for those schools. There's also like even more schools, BBSS, which is like vehicle board search and seizure. So basically learning how to board a vessel. There's all kinds of schools that the Navy offers that you can go into to be more specific, like outside of your rate. Because as I like to say, is that as a sailor, we wear many hats. Right, so we have our primary jobs, but as you saw in the video, I went through the schooling for SRF Alpha. So I was also the anti-terrorism training team member. So what I do there is basically train people how to, stand a proper watch, or how to operate whenever there's like a bomb threat, or if there's like a shooter on the pier, or somebody's penetrated the ship. My specific position was to be able to tell this person how to strategically move a team down to that and take out that person, whoever it was trying to do harm to us. So I also did damage control training team member. So when you think about it, we're on a ship, so we can't call our local fire departments or anything like that. So we're the ones that respond. So as a damage control training team member, I was specifically more of an investigator. So those guys are the primary people to go there first and clear out everyone. So I would train people how to go into berthings, how to clear a berthing via damage control, get them out, and tell them the safe routes, which ways to go, how to properly egress, give them the EBDs, which is basically like a 15-minute ventilation mask that you put on in order to get out of the space if something were to happen, or smoke were to build up, or toxic gas were to get into it. And that's the kind of things that I did that I was able to enjoy. So on top of my job, I learned so many different things that I'm going to take with me whenever I decide to get out. I mean, honestly, I probably won't even get out 20 years because I enjoy this so much, and being able to give back and do these things for people and defend my country.
So Carlin, I have a question. Our Sea Cadets, throughout their training, they do spend time standing watch, right? Either through the different training commands that they go through during their activities or within their local units. Can you explain how the security reaction force works in regards to readiness? And are you on duty for a particular day to do this, or is it on demand, or how do you spring into action with enough time to actually fulfill that obligation?
Wonderful question. Yes. So with the security force reaction, right? You have so many personnel that need to be qualified to be on your ship at that time, and then they also need to be spread out onto the duty sections. So on my ship, I was on a DDG, so it's a smaller ship. We were rough. It varies from 3 sections to 6 sections. So we would have a team of 4 at least people into that. So every 6 days, someone would stand duty, and every 6 days after a certain time frame, probably around 1600, right, or 4 p.m. for those of you who haven't been studying the military time. Right, you're basically everyone's gone for the day, so it's just you and your team there. All right, so if anything were to happen, you and your team need to react and get down to the armory in we would say like 2 minutes at the most. But with that, like throughout the day, we have everyone on board. So if something were to happen, we have primary people that would go to it. So like the subject matter experts in that area. So like the gunner's mates or someone along those lines would go down, and they would be the ones to handle that or arm up if something were to happen. And it's the same thing for damage control. So we every duty section they have to fill up what we call a fire party. So, and that's the same thing with anti-terrorism, that they've built up a fire team back there. So they have to have people that monitor the armory, people that watch the doors forward and aft, right? But for a fire party too, you have to be able to have like the hoseman, the nozzleman. You have to have the scene leader, the team leader. You have to have the DCA, like assistant there, like whoever's on board, like that can help out with the engineering side as well. So you have the subject matter experts that are always in repair. should report. So like on deployments, whenever we're not, on sections per se, we have the people that are going to do the quick response, which are the primary in their fields. So like engineering, typically for like fires, would respond to that and be like the primary investigators or like the hosesmen and stuff like that. And it's the same thing for the gunners mates and stuff for the security force reaction. Does that answer the question, sir? I think.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just trying to bridge the gap between what our cadets do in their training and how it's applied out into the fleet. So standing watch may not necessarily be their favorite activity. I get it. But it's necessary, right? Because you have to protect your shipmates and the vessel. And that's primary.
Absolutely. So I cannot agree with you more, So, I mean, when you stand watch, you're not particularly by yourself. So as we hope, we always try to help, like we get someone that we like talking to. So when we're standing those 4 or 5 hour watches or the mid watch, we basically just, it wasn't really that bad because we talk to these people and we get to know their life, because whenever it's like 11:30 at night, there's nothing else to do, like you're doing, well, besides standing your vigilant watch, you're also, talking to the person on watch with you, whether you're standing officer of the deck, petty officer of the watch, or messenger of the watch, you're talking to them or you're giving training to them. That way they can keep moving up as well, which is the ultimate goal, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be there for that long. Like every tour is going to end 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 or 6, depending on your contract length. So you always want to train that person below you to surpass you. That way you can feel confident leaving that command, knowing that that ship is going to be safe and that you did your best with that. Because you want to, in any career, you want to make the biggest impact that you can, because at the end of the day, you're going to leave. But, yes. So here you see, I thought it was unique whenever we pulled into Japan, we were able to moor alongside the Japanese ship, which that isn't my ship, but I'm taking a picture from mine, but that's exactly what ours look like whenever we go. So being able to go on board other vessels, that the Japanese ship wasn't the only one I did a tour on. I also did one on a Canadian ship, an Australian ship, whenever we pulled into those ports, and understand their cultures and see how their Navy operates and how things are different for them, like for us. Yeah. So, the center picture there is whenever I, started Navy recruiting, and the smile on my face shows how much I enjoy it, which I thoroughly do, because I can make an impact on people's lives. Because I feel like most Navy careers start with the recruiters, because the recruiters should be giving them information about their future Navy, what they're going to accomplish, establishing goals of what you need to accomplish in the Navy, and how you can obtain it using the resources, whether it's the GI Bill, tuition assistance, knowing what a sapper is, right? Knowing about the websites that you can go to prior to going to boot camp. That way, whenever you get to that point in basic training, or even when you get to your first command, you're like, oh yes, I remember Petty Officer Carlin told me about this, and maybe he'll call me, which I do. I tell all my future sailors whenever they graduate, they can always call me if they ever have any questions, because I feel like I have accomplished a lot in my military career, and I really want to help them out and benefit them. That way they can do better than I have. Yes, and as the black and white picture, very majestic, that was me with my uncle. As I said, he retired a commander, very proud of him, did 30 years. He made another big impact on me as well. He was actually fortunate enough to be able to go to my my frocking to Petty Officer 3rd Class, which is very cool, because he was a commander at the time, and I was so new to the Navy that I didn't tell my ship that he was coming on board. So whenever they ring on the commander, United States Navy coming on board, the cat next door running down like, who's coming on board? Because they're probably thinking it's probably some inspector or something. So I probably should have told them, but I learned very quickly you need to tell people whenever someone like that's coming on board. But down on the left, you see that I was with the prior. A couple years back, the MCPON, so Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Stevens, he came by on Naval Base San Diego. I was able to meet with him, do a little photo op. I actually got a Master Chief coin, MCPON coin as well. He's very nice. He's just And what they do, you get this a lot throughout the fleet, that they MCPONs or the hierarchy like to come around, ask questions in ways that, and they ask sailors that are in the pits per se, right? What things could be changed to better the Navy, right? And that's your time to be the voice. Like, you always have a voice, but at a higher level, you can always talk to him, and then he talks about his experiences, and you can learn from him. So that was unique, and that was fun. On the middle picture was me standing on a beam. I was aloft at the time working on one of our wind systems. I will say, at first, it was very scary jumping on, I didn't jump, but going on that thing, and it's on our mast. So it doesn't feel safe, but it is very safe. It's just more nerve-wracking if you're scared of heights, but I got over that fear doing that, because they were like, hey, you need to do this sometime because you'll be doing it later on in your career. So I did it. It was worth it at the end of the day, but the beam shakes, so it still makes me uneasy to this day. But I was actually able to, as well, we're on deployment, both of our wind systems went down. We need that for navigation. So while we're underway, the ship is moving and rocking, but what the ship did is they maintained a course and slowed down the ship's speed. That way I could go up and stand up on that mast like that and go into it and troubleshoot and fix the system, which I was able to fix one of them, but not the other one. But that's all we needed until we pulled into an actual port and be able to fix it. On the middle picture, that was whenever we went to a safari, animal safari in Australia. And for some reason, I had a mustache at the time. But, I mean, it's a deployment thing. You'll come to see whenever people go on deployments, they grow mustaches. And I don't know where that cultural thing came from, but everyone did it, so I did it. But and on the right picture, you see me aloft. That was whenever I went aloft for the first time, meaning aloft is going up on the mast up above a certain zone, well, like certain height. That's whenever we call aloft. But back to like the Australia picture, I was able to travel the world, as I told you earlier, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, Kuala Lumpur. I've been all over, studying different cultures, seeing how customs work, knowing things I can and cannot do, or what things are allowed there but not allowed in our country. And trying the foods was definitely the best. I loved it. I love eating food, especially in like something that's I can't even read off the menu. Because I remember when I went to South Korea for the first time. None of them spoke English in this restaurant, and all the words I couldn't understand. So what we did was we just pointed at it and we just went with whatever we got. And so that was kind of cool, and it's kind of scary because you didn't know if it'd come out moving or not. But fortunately enough, it didn't. So I was able to do that. Next, we have some more pictures, more in like some of our systems that we deal with. Some of them looks like working on lighting. Oh, the middle one with the green vest on, they're working on lighting fixtures, floodlights. Then you have someone working on an amplifier on the left. They're working on the sound-powered amplifiers to be able to push out further distance, basically. Then you have people working on the flight deck, making sure the horizon scope's working, so that way when aircraft try to land, they can make sure the measurements are exact. So, like, whenever you have landing crafts on a ship, you want to make sure that everything's aligned. Otherwise, whenever the heli's trying to like the land or the airplane's trying to land, that they're actually at the right horizon. So like there's like little bars like green, red, and yellow on it. So that way, if the ship rocks, it's able to tell it, hey, you're coming in too low or you're coming too high. That way they can adjust and land safely. So, and for that. All right, sir. So this is the Ask Me Almost Anything. But as you see in this picture, just want to underway replenishment at sea. So what that is that we get supplies, whether it's food, mail call. So whenever we order stuff on Amazon, it gets shipped out to us. It comes us via underway replenishment, as well as any ammo that we needed or fueling, especially. That's the time the ship takes to refuel, which roughly takes 2 to 3 hours, depending on the ship. I know some bigger ships, they take like 5 to like 8 hours or something like that, which I couldn't imagine. But I felt like it was long, but it was still fun because we were able to get out in the fresh air and be able to talk to some of these other people. All right.
All right. So open for some questions. So I have my first question, Petty Officer Carlin. In that previous picture, I really like that deployment beard you had going on there.
Oh, yes.
Were you social distancing at the time and it was okay? What was going on?
That's what actually makes the USS Kidd one of the, I feel, the most unique ship in the fleet is because we're known as the Pirates as the Sea. Because during World War, I believe it was during like the Vietnam, whenever ships like aircraft got shot down, the ships would recover those pilots, and the captain would ration those pilots for ice cream to the bigger decks. So he would say, "Hey, you can have your pilot back, but you need to get my shipmates like 16 gallons of ice cream," and that's the only way they can get them back. But so they call us the Pirates of the Sea. So every time we went underway, we carried that tradition. Obviously not with the pilots, but our captain would be like, "Get your pirate on," which meant the females could wear their hair down, meaning they don't have to do them ponytails, not regs, and the males can grow beards. But obviously, whenever we pulled into port, we had to shave and we had to fix our hairs and stuff like that.
That's fantastic. All right, so I do have a couple questions which were submitted earlier, so I'll pose them to you. For those who are watching live, please ask your questions in the comment field within the YouTube live feed, and we'll bring them forward. So the first question is, what is your favorite part of the job? It's a pretty vague question, so you can answer it any old way you want to, but what is your favorite part?
I'll give you two responses, because as an interior communications and as a Navy counselor. So as an interior communications electrician, my favorite part was troubleshooting the equipment that people felt couldn't get fixed. So what that means is if the ship can't fix it at the ship personnel level, they request higher hierarchy, meaning an outside source to come in and help troubleshoot. But for me, I like being able to try to go and fix those problems that the ship would call higher hierarchy, because if I can fix it, we wouldn't need them. But so those under pressure type situations, especially too, like on deployment, if something goes down, so like we would get like roughly 30 to 50 trouble calls, meaning like someone called down to our shop saying, "Hey, our navigation inputs are off, go fix it." I'm like, okay, that's vague, but we'd have to go and try to figure it out, and we'd have to get it up, because it's not just us trying to looking at it. It's our department heads, it's the XO, it's maybe the CEO. If it's on his monitor, they're asking us questions. Hey, when's this going to get fixed? What's the problem? How are you going to fix it? Do we need to order parts or whatnot? But I definitely enjoyed that part, because as I said, I like being under pressure, and I felt like those are the times we're definitely under pressure. Another thing for a Navy counselor, my favorite part is honestly just talking to people about my life, about what I do in my career, and then actually trying to set goals for them to help them accomplish, and seeing the brightness in their face, like whenever they say, like, "Oh man, you can really do that. Like you can go buy a house, or like you get paid to go live in a house, or like, hey, I can get certified in that area, even though I work as this." Like even one of my recruiters, right? They went to school for nuclear engineering, but she's working on her medical degree, right? Just because you're in a field doesn't mean you have to stick into that field and go that degree. So whenever someone hears that, their eyes brighten up, like, oh, I can do other things other than just my job. So.
Oh, that's great. Another question, and you may have to filter this a little bit because of operational security, but what is the closest you've ever been to active combat? Because our cadets like to know these types of things. And you know what? I think I do too.
Yes, sir. Yes. So with this, mainly what the Navy does is they monitor maritime operations, cargo vessels, and stuff like that. Me personally, I haven't been that close per se, right, to certain areas, but some areas are dangerous, right? So if you go to those areas, right, you get what we call hazardous duty pay or danger pay, and then just basically an extra stipend, basically the amount of money that goes into your account if you're in those areas. I mean, I did get a couple of those for a couple months, but other than that, can't get into too much detail. Other than the other closest thing that's been to danger is the security force reaction schooling, shooting the simulated rounds at each other. But that was about it, sir.
Oh, that's fine. That's excellent. And that does relate, I think, with the next question that we just received live online. Now, we had a presentation earlier in the week for aviation rescue swimmer. So the question here specifically is, have you ever been to SEER school? Now, that may not be applicable to your rate, but with your combat reaction force, I'm sure that was pretty physical, pretty intense training, right? So could you give us like what a day was like when you were going there? Because from what we saw from the video, you know, it's not just sitting around absorbing. There's practical, and they probably make it as challenging as possible in order to be authentic.
Yes, they do. They do as much as the instructors do a magnificent job there. I couldn't ask for better trainers or instructors there. I mean, they have people that were retired, you know, in like SEALs, right? Or you have retired like just gunners mates, you know, people who've been doing this kind of stuff for a while. Definitely I have not been to SEER school. I was not fortunate enough to go for that, but I chose a different career path, as I believe. And certain career fields are meant for certain people. I was not one of those, you know, so I chose interior communications. So don't ever feel pressured to go into something that you don't feel comfortable going into without having a better understanding of it. But a day in, day out of SRF Alpha was basically we go there in the morning, roughly around 7 o'clock, get there, stretch PT, I do a little PT, push-ups, you know, we practice takedowns, and then we do some applied tests, you know. I mean like written tests, but most of it is practicing movements going down a pier. So we would practice going down a pier, and you would have the instructors yelling at you, pretend to be the assailant or someone trying to come into the ship, or someone trying to penetrate the pier, or someone calling with a bomb threat, right? They would actually use little props. That way you had to try to find it. They'd use little strings, right? So there's different types of bombs. So like you want to know, you give you like a bomb kit to be able to search the room, right? Thoroughly, be able to look around. That way you're not just walking in there and just like, oh, hey, I'm here. No, you want to do it methodically, do everything slow but smooth but fast, right? Other than that, we did shoot a little bit, but it was mostly it was all the simulated rounds. They deal with plastic props a lot in the beginning for like the first 2 weeks until you can pass that course, because they want to make sure that you're not showing your muzzle or pointing your muzzle at someone, because that's very important that you do not muzzle someone, because if you pull the trigger accidentally, then you're taking someone out. So they practice muzzle safety a lot, and they yell at you if you do that. But other than that, yeah, that was it for SRF Alpha.
Yeah, killing your fellow student is probably frowned upon. I'm just guessing.
You'll fail the course.
I would think so. Another question online, and this is similar, but aside from troubleshooting, calibration, and stuff like that, when you're on a ship, what does your normal day-to-day routine look like for someone in the IC rating?
Okay. Yes. So a normal day-to-day for IC ratings, it is a very busy job, right? So day in and day out, like we muster in the morning, like around 7 o'clock, right? We go eat challenge before that, but we start our work day because we have like a maintenance list. We have things that we need to accomplish for that day or for that week. We have what we call daily checks, weekly checks, monthly checks. So like everything cycles over and filters, like it's continuous. So like we make sure we get to knock out all of our maintenance that was scheduled for the day, given to us by our work center supervisor, which was me. So I would divvy out the maintenance for the day. I would go knock out my portion, deal with administrative work, and then once they're done, depending on the scenario. So if we're on deployment, once they're done, that's their time. Or if they have to stand watch, they have to stand watch and act the IC. So if like something happens, like some system goes down, we have usually around 3 or 4 guys that would respond to that casualty and try to fix it, right? And then report it back up to the combat systems officer to watch whether what's wrong, how long it'll take to bring it back up. But if you're not on watch, what you can do is go work out. People play video games. My whole shop of guys, we bought a 60-inch TV for my second deployment. So we put in money for that, and we all brought our Xboxes, PlayStations. So we had TVs all in all our spaces, right? And when the Nintendo Switches came out, we ordered one. So we had about 6 Nintendo Switches, and we also had Mario Kart. So we would go play Mario Kart after all our maintenance is done. Make sure your maintenance is done. But after the workday, to do that. They also have like movie times. So like a movie on the flight deck, we would set that up. So we would set up projectors onto our hangar doors, and it would show a movie. The culinary specialist, they would make popcorn, nachos, or hot dogs, or ice cream, and they would, people go grab snacks and watch a movie on a flight deck. And usually for us as ICs, we would get the newer movies, so we would try to put something on to it that no one's ever seen. So like on deployments, we usually get early releases of movies, so we get to see movies before they actually come out. So I was able to show those to some people, and then, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can call home too, send emails. I was on Facebook a lot, doing on Messenger, just talking to my family, giving them updates, how I'm doing, things that I want, like mainly like we would always ask snacks. And then once we get the care packages, we would share them amongst ourselves in the division. So if I got something, I would just give it to everyone else too, because that's what we do because not everyone gets care packages. So you want to look out for your other sailors as well. So we would do that. It was a lot of fun. We did a Mario Kart tournament. I didn't win, but it's all right.
See, that is so cool because that was my experience too. The different work centers that had access to certain things, they always had their area completely tricked out, right? So what you're saying with all the electronics, or when you were dealing with CVs, they had the best facilities, or any of the other rates, something that they were like big with, like the cooks are eating like champs, right? Right. So your skills are something that you give to everyone, but you may use a little bit of it yourself, and that's okay. It's all true.
Quid pro quo thing, sir.
Yes.
CSs and ICs, phone calls home, right? But I like setting up the movie marathons of like Lord of the Rings or like Star Wars. But we actually did get calls to stop playing movies. It got to the point where someone came down and broke it because we played it on repeat. It was actually pitch perfect, but it was a lot of fun.
Wonder how that happened.
It was the only movie playing. So they didn't want it anymore, but it was fun.
Another question that came in online was, you mentioned OC spray in the earlier video. What is that?
I forget what the O stands for. I know it's capsium. So basically it's like mace, right? So it's a little more intense than mace. So it's basically you get sprayed on the eyes, and then you have to go through like an obstacle course. They prep you for it, right? Make sure you're not having any specific allergies that can harm you, and stuff like that. But that's like the final test to finish Surf Bravo, right? Before that, you're taking tests about how to handle a weapon, how to clear a weapon, how to load it, how to stand a proper watch. It's a lot of general order stuff. So the 11 general orders. So yeah, those sea spray is just like mace, but probably like 5 times worse.
So you're saying that knowing the 11 general orders ahead of time would have helped you out, maybe?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I just got out of basic training too. So whenever I went to Surf Bravo, it was still all fresh in my head, which is still should always stick with you. The 11 general orders, even now, like doesn't matter what point you are in your career, you should always try to remember the 11 general orders for the most part, because they're guidelines.
Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, cadets, because we drill you on that. So there's reasons for these learnings. So keep it. Another question that came in earlier is, and pretty open-ended, what is the most important thing about your job? And that's a hard one, right? Because from what we saw today, there's so many interesting and multifaceted things that you do. So to try to pick one, maybe just go pick something from the top 10, and I'm sure that will work.
Okay. Yes, sir. So, I mean, me being a FOTMS tech, fiber optic data multiplexing system, I would say the nervous system of the ship is the most important. But at the end of the day, what helps keep the ship moving is the morale. So when it comes to movie time, meaning the movies that we play, that's the time for them to go decompress, or it's whenever the sailors are able to call home to their families. That makes a huge impact on them. Us, like them being able to shoot messages on Facebook or email home, that's very important, right? Because that's what's going to keep uplifting them. Because on deployments, it feels like you're alone, but you're not. You're surrounded by sailors, and you're able to call home. So being able to have them to communicate and relax on the ship is, in my opinion, the most important thing for a sailor, is the morale.
Well said. Excellent choice. So, cadets and viewers, we're running to the top of our time here, and I really do want to thank Petty Officer Carlin for sharing his background and his experiences and making that available to us. These first-person narratives that we're looking at really help us understand what happens in the fleet, the importance of every single job and every single thing that happens out there, and then maybe possibly give some of you some ideas of things you might want to explore more. So it's all great learning, and Petty Officer Carlin, really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Very impactful, greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, sir. So
for our cadets, again, there will be a brief 10-question quiz available to you. We will post the URL address in this video after it's archived and ready to go on the site. We'll also publish it in a variety of areas. It'll only be active for 2 days, so if you're interested in getting that credit, get on it, give it your best shot, and we'll pass it along to you for your virtual drill credit. Back to quizzes. The previous quiz for aviation rescue swimmer, that becomes offline at 2000, 8 p.m. today. So if you haven't completed that and you saw that episode, get that done as well. So, Officer Carlin, again, thank you very much for everyone that joined us today. Hopefully this was impactful to you. It absolutely was to me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was background that I wasn't familiar with, but I have a greater appreciation for those who are out at sea and making sure that everything's running. Great time. So we will be doing our next episode of Real Sailors, Real Sea Stories next Tuesday. It'll be broadcasted live. Hope to see or have most of you here at that point in time. And looking forward to continuing our stories about our real sailors doing great stuff out in the fleet. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.